We had a power-packed lineup of sessions on the cloud track, and for our ending keynote, we welcome Rohit Dixit, SVP of HPE, and Greg Adgate, VP Global Partner Program at Equinix, to discuss the topic, the next chapter of cloud. Welcome, Rohit and Greg.
Thank you. My name is Greg Adgate, Vice President of Global Partner Programs for Equinix, and I'm excited to be here today. Equinix operates global data center and interconnection infrastructure around the world. We have the unique position in the digital economy of supporting digital leaders by interconnecting their foundational infrastructure that powers their success. As mentioned in the setup, I'll be talking with Rohit Dixit, SVP and General Manager of Advisory and Professional Services at HPE. And we'll be discussing key themes in the cloud conversation, including the importance of delivering the quality of experience that must be brought by applications and data in this cloud world. Rohit, it's nice to speak with you. What have been your main takeaways from the event so far?
Yeah, thank you very much, Greg. It's been great, right, to see this community come together and just the amazing breadth of innovation and the high quality thought leadership that this group brings. Very interesting to listen to and a lot to learn from. There's a couple of themes there that seem to really stand out. Right? One is that the cloud has emerged as a major way in which technology is consumed and innovated on. And similar to the emergence of, I guess, any major industry shift, such as, I don't know, you think of the mainframes or you think of client server models many years ago, it creates a fundamental shift in the way our customers and consume technology, which brings with it its own challenges and its opportunities as well, of course. But I think that we need to make sure that we don't fixate on a particular trend and that we open the aperture of the discussion and think about the interplay of the trends and what they mean for the end-to-end IT landscape, because I think then we get a broader picture of the challenges and a much complete picture of the opportunities that they present.
Yeah, agreed. Based upon our position in supporting end user organizations and digital service providers, we're seeing accelerated adoption of digital solutions across the board. In some cases to extend advantage, in other cases for survival. We see adoption expanding from public cloud in an initial geography for a specific workload to a much broader adoption of various options that meet business requirements in a distributed architecture. What are you seeing when you engage with clients, Rohit?
Yeah, we see very similar themes, Greg. One thing, as I said in the beginning, is very clear, is that the customers are seeing a lot of value in how the cloud is accelerating the transformation. But at the same time, from that broader perspective, they're also looking at challenges in data gravity, in the regulations that they have to meet, in security. And all of these things are leading to the customer actually demanding that cloud-like experience everywhere. What do I mean by cloud-like experience? Obviously, the rapid scaling up, scaling down, the fewer management headaches, the simple to use tools that can be applied by or leveraged by many of the personas in any enterprise environment. And then, of course, the economic flexibility. This cloud-like experience was, of course, available on the public cloud, and of course, as a service offerings that most of the providers now provide. But we're also seeing that large enterprises, technology providers are now moving to providing their offerings in a consumption model as well, where you pay for only what you use, and it sort of gives you the best of both worlds of architectural control, higher security, better latency, but you still get that cloud-like economics. And then, of course, customers also have the choice of a private cloud, for example, in a colo facility like yours, Greg. And then, let's also not forget about the edge. I mean, the edge is sort of like the hidden story behind all of this that I think is going to be a very major component in how we think about IT consumption going forward. When I say edge, I mean, of course, remote office, branch office, factories, etc. And what we are seeing there is a huge decentralization of compute and consumption, right? We're pushing a lot more compute out away from the data centers, to a point where I think I read somewhere that 70% of data in the future will never see a data center. It's going to get created, it's going to get analyzed, and it's going to get acted upon all at the edge, right? And now when you think about what that does is it creates this multi-cloud, very hybrid environment where there's the choices of many, many estates that you can operate an IT infrastructure out of, which again is a very powerful tool for more enterprises to have. And now the trick, of course, is how do you transition from where you are to where you need to be?
That's a great validation that you're seeing from your advisory services business unit. We actually don't have that at Equinix. We're also seeing that most customers have settled on hybrid and multi-cloud as their architecture of choice. This architecture allows them to deploy in the right geographies, meeting the right performance and compliance parameters with maximum flexibility. So we see that too. How is HPE seeing this play out when you give advisory services?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Greg. We're seeing it the same way. I think most customers have agreed that the direction is hybrid, and that multi-cloud hybrid, it just seems to be the direction everybody's going. But obviously, the implementation of that is complicated, right? It's non-trivial. And I think the biggest thing that we're seeing with the customers is a lack of clarity or surety as to where to start, right? Where to start, and then how do you get from where you are to where you need to get to. And again, if you think about it from a CIO shoes with a sort of like a broader frame, even as you have the cloud-like experience everywhere, 60-70% of the apps will actually still stay on-prem, right? So the first thing that you have to figure out is, what of these multiple choices of the platform, what is what we call the right mix of your workloads, of your data, of your app, and where they should reside. And it's a non-trivial point again, because that is a right mix that is very unique to you as a customer, because your requirements of latency, your data requirements, your data gravity, security, etc. All of these things sort of factor into that unique mix that is right for you. So one is, how do you just figure that out? And then once you figured out what that right mix is, how do you refactor, how do you re-platform your applications and your workloads to run in this new right mix that you've just decided on? And then in that right mix, how does everything interoperate, right? How do apps operate? How does data flow? And you need clarity on that. And obviously you need sort of to make that move. But and then diverse environments obviously create challenges in terms of how do you manage that very diverse environment. Can you get to a place where you can get a single pane of glass where you can see the entire environment on that pane of glass and know that how you're operating, how to manage it, how to optimize it, and sort of keep improving it and getting the most out of your investment that you've made. Beyond the technology is the requirements of the skills that you need to not just get to that place, but also live in that space.
You're right. I'm glad you brought that up. The technology often grabs everyone's attention, but the people, process, and tools side of things is often overlooked. The mix of edge, core, and multi-cloud means that delivering well at software speed is about more than just tech. Can you elaborate on some of the operational and organizational model changes needed to be successful in this increasingly complex environment?
Yeah. I think my point of view, Greg, is that in any cloud adoption, in any sort of move to this hybrid cloud, the skills and the processes, they're just a major factor in success and probably the most underrated. For any cloud transformation or any digital transformation to be meaningful, it has to change the way the business operates, right? Because without that, it's not a major transformation. And I'll give you some data points that we've seen from our engagements in our advisory practice. We have a sort of methodology that looks at the cloud maturity of our customers, their maturity and their ability to adopt the hybrid cloud. And what we usually find is that of those 8 domains that the customer should be sort of looking at their maturity on, the customer is usually fairly strong and well ahead on the technology side, or at least more prepared for it. The parts that they are sort of unprepared on some of that softer things we talked about, right? Because when we looked at technology, operations, and people, the people aspect, the skills and the culture are really where, we find that most of our customers either have, not paid enough attention or are way behind on the skills that they need. And this obviously means adopting, new approaches like DevOps or Cloud Ops and retraining your people or changing the skill mix of the business altogether. And of course, using automation to automate all the things that you can. But the transformation itself, it requires a change, not just in your skill set, but also in your end user, because their ability to understand and adopt the changes that you're putting in place and the management of change wrapper that you put around that really ends up being sort of some of the most critical factors. And like I said, perhaps the most underrated, the least understood, and the least focused on.
Those are fantastic insights. The ultimate outcome we're aiming to drive is for a consistent experience while using a seamless blend of public and private resources to enable agility and control. The skill and process challenges you highlighted is something that Equinix sees at a high level from our vantage point in working with end users and partners. Since we chiefly supply data center and interconnection elements, our partners deliver those skills and tools. And without those skills and tools, most projects will stall. Our partners deliver significant value in closing those gaps for clients that we support together. The big idea is that each organization should identify the right strategic mix of public, private, and on-prem resources, a mix that can change over time, but that gives them the adaptability to address different organizational mission needs. Now, as we come to the end, would you like to summarize some tips for everyone?
Yeah, absolutely, Greg. I think there's probably 5 things that if you're either a customer or if you're a CIO or an entrepreneur or, just sort of thinking about this very important topic, I just leave with 5 thoughts. The first one is that as you sort of start to think about this transformation, right, you must start with a fact-based view of where your current state is. Right? What kind of apps do you run? What is their requirements? What is their data gravity? And what is the app entanglement and all that kind of stuff, right? You must have a very clear idea of where you are right now. Based off of that, you can then, with all the requirements of your business, you can design what that end state right mix needs to be. What I find with a lot of my interaction with customers is that they start to design that end state without a very clear understanding of where they are right now and what the requirements are in the end state that they need to get to. And by the way, if you're an entrepreneur or you're an innovator, there's a lot of opportunities, not just in sort of migration to the cloud stuff, but also in helping a customer understand where their current estates are, what the current state is in terms of how they utilize their assets, and then using automation, using tools like that will help them understand their current state better, and then helping them design that the future state that they need to get to. Once you've decided that end state and you want to get to that end state, that in that end state, that interoperability, the interdependency of the data flow and that app entanglement that I talked about is probably the most complex technological aspect of that transformation. And again, there's great opportunities in building services around that if you're an entrepreneur. But if you're sort of going through that journey, that interoperability, that app entanglement, I think is probably sort of the largest technological hurdle there is. But as we discussed before, right, the technology aspect is important, but really it's not going to solve your problem. And I've seen many a project succeed technologically, but not provide the ROI that they were looking for because of that ecosystem of skills and the partners that anybody surrounds them with. If they don't match the direction that you're going in, then you will get to the end of your transformation, but you will not get the benefit of it because you will not be able to derive the ROI from it. And then, just not just the transformation within your ecosystem of IT providers and the partner system that surrounds it, but a lot of focus on your end user, right? Do they understand the change? Do they understand what they need to do for adoption? Do they understand the benefit that comes out of it? That would be sort of the fourth point I would bring up. And then finally, change is constant, right? Your right mix today will not be the right mix tomorrow. The environment will change, your requirements will change, and the ecosystem around you will change, right? And keep your eye out, by the way, on the edge, because I think that's one of the things that's going to disrupt everything in terms of the way data is managed, in the way compute is done, and where value is derived from that entire compute cycle. But as the edge progresses, and as you progress in your leverage of the edge, you will have to revisit your right mix again. And there again, a lot of opportunity in terms of using AI, machine learnings to understand how the current environment operates, and making recommendation on how the future environment should operate, and what are the tweaks that are required to get you from point A to point B, and then to continue the evolution from there on. So yeah, I think if you keep those 5 points in mind, fact-based view of where you are and designing your end state based off of that, making sure that you understand the interoperability, interdependency, that app entanglement, that's point 2. Point 3 is making sure that, even as you focus on the technology side, that management of change internally in your IT systems is going to be very critical, and finding the right partners. Focus also on the end user and the management of change of the end user. And then 5th is just when you think you're done, get ready to start to do it again, because by the time that journey is complete, there will be changes you'll have to adapt to. So yeah, Greg, I guess those would be my 5 big takeaways from everything I've learned so far, not just through this conversation, but all the customer interactions that we've been having.
Thank you, Rohit. That's a great summary of learnings and advice. Any closing words of inspiration for us all today?
Yeah, look, most of us have been in the technology industry for a long time. I think this is probably one of the most exciting times, right? Just from the amount of change that's happening, the amount of assets that are available at the disposal of any innovator or anybody trying to do very interesting things, right? I think it's a very exciting place to be right now, and I'm very much looking forward to going on that journey with this community. All the great leaders that we have here, the thought leadership that they've provided. I really look forward to learning from them and making this journey with them. And then just in closing, I just like to say that I know this community has a lot of family and friends back in India, and my very sincerest hope that all of them are doing well, and everybody is healthy and safe. Thank you very much once again for giving me the opportunity to speak at this event. And with that, let me hand it back to the host.
Thank you so much for the wonderful discussion, Rohit and Greg. We really appreciate you taking time for TiEcon 2021.